The August 5th, 2020 meeting of the Laconia Conservation Commission. We do a roll call. I'm Dean Anson.
Deb Williams?
Lisa Moran.
Marnie Schultz?
Stacy Susie.
Deidre Feather.
Ashley Ruprecht.
Okay, so we start the meeting with a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it is 6:24. All right, so how long will it take to do the minutes? A minute?
Let's put those
Put them
at the end. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so we're going to start with 360 Court Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Conservation Commission members. Steve Smith of Steve Smith and Associates for the record. I'm here tonight representing George C. Stafford and Sons at 60 Court Street. We filed an application just today for site plan review with the City of Laconia. And on the board up here, I have a copy of the existing conditions plan for 360 Court Street. This is down beside what used to be Weeks Realty. If you headed out of town, you have Steve Weeks Realty, the big building there. This would be the next building. And this is the property that houses their transport trucks that transport fuel in high volumes back here and to other stations around New Hampshire. This is Court Street. This is a long lot that goes back. It's 2.92 acres of land area. And the property, basically the development of the property is a third of the front of it, fronting on Court Street. It's in two zones. The front zone from this line here is the urban commercial. This one back here, zone is residential, single family. And what we have here is that we have two existing wetlands on the site. We have a wetland in the back here, which is a naturally occurring wetland with wetland. And we show in red the physical buffer. And so to let you know, it's wooded basically from this zone line back. Undisturbed wooded area. And what we have, and I gave you pictures of it, is that this building has been here historically for a long time. And it's actually a two-level building. This back, from right about here back, this area is about 4 to 5 feet higher than the front where the garage doors are. And what happens is the transport trucks come in at night and they leave their tankers out here parked. And they put the vehicles inside. And of course, the real problem is in the wintertime, these big trucks out on the road having snow on them and stuff. And also they're expensive vehicles and they like to try to keep them under cover. So our proposal is to put a full bay garage in this location right here. Where they can come in at night and back the truck and everything right in and be undercover. And it's back this far because they have to have this area for turning movement. These are WB-62 vehicles, and I gave you a picture of one of them in the pictures I presented to you. You can see the car right there. So our building is positioned in order to be able to function and get in and out. And when doing this, originally, we had a map that showed that we knew the wetland was here. But the map was done a number of years ago, it didn't meet standards for, within 5 years, wetland mapping, so we had wetland science on all the sites. He remapped this area, but he also discovered that there's a wetland down around this building. And that wetland is a result of a lack of maintenance of underdrain around this entire building here. It drains to a catch basin in this location. It's probably been in failure for a number of years. So we basically created a man-made wetland around this building because foundation drains are not working. And if you walk out there, you can actually see the foundation drains are being pushed right out of the ground because the water is just sitting there. So we're here requesting, we're going to be going to the planning board for a conditional use permit, which I filed, and I filed the wetlands conditional use permit with my application, because we'll be impacting the buffer in this area here. Now, there is already a building in the buffer right here. That building's going to be removed. It's not being used, hasn't been used for a long time. This is a gravel parking area up here. So this has all been developed in the past. So we believe we put it in the best location possible. We're giving even much more and greater protection to the natural occurring wetland that's back here. Our development is going to be 140 feet away from it, which requires a 50-foot buffer. It's going to retain that wooded area back in that natural condition back in here, which will be much better for this particular wetland. But we cannot, there's no way we can do anything on this site with this man-made wetland in this area. We have been talking with them about possibly going into the Wetlands Bureau and getting a permit to get in and repair those foundation drains at some point in time. Get them back working to get this water out of here that's standing around the building. But in the meantime, we are going to the board to get this proposal approved, so we're requesting an impact to the wetland buffer. And this other scale is the same plan, but in a larger scale. And this is the wetland around the building. This is the proposed building. We have grading around the building. We're providing drainage treatment that doesn't occur on the site now to bring it down to this is graded such that nothing will come this way to impact that particular wetland at this moment in time. Regrading is such that all the water moves forward and nothing silts in this area here. And we're providing a silt fence back in here and plus out here in the road between the road and the
So the wetland is here, back here, and along the side?
Yes, you can see that that's the wetland outline of the dock.
Okay. Okay.
And that is just where it's been captured because the foundation drains around it. You can see that they cut into this bank when they built this building. This was a pretty big bank in here at the time. We believe that this wetland is really a result of the lack of maintenance of the foundation drains. A lot of that water is staying in there. There's no way going around.
So what's the distance from the edge of the building to the wetland?
That distance from that edge of the building to wetland is only about 15 feet. And the building that's there now is only about 15 feet away.
Okay.
So you have a floor drain for
Is your
oil and water
wetland-
separation?
Yep, we have
Or
all
such
water-
as it-
water
such as it
separated.
is.
Yep.
We actually, the state just started allowing them to use it. And our first conversation with DES was that we could have one here, we'd have to pump it out. We couldn't tie it to the sewer. We just got done doing a project at Stafford's facility downtown on 4th Street. We have the same thing in a wash bay. They're allowing us to tie it into the sewer. We couldn't figure out why. Well, we filed the application this morning. This afternoon, they called us back, said, where were you thinking that? We think we're going to let you tie it to the sewer. So we're probably going to adjust that to tie it to the sewer. We can't keep up with
Oh, sorry.
regulations.
Sorry.
So the lot where the other wetland is actually drains down towards Court Street, is that correct?
Actually, everything drains this way. this wetland sets in somewhat of a level area up here, that's basically why it's probably wet, but we believe that, we're gonna be protecting the real gem, if you wanna call it a wetland, because this is a very active growing wetland, it's a wooded wetland. It's surrounded by woods. We're only gonna be developing the area that's already been disturbed and already been developed, and used. This is not, we're not increasing the use of this property, we're just providing facility to park their trucks and get along.
And they park their trucks there now, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they've used this site for a long time.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the use isn't changing, the use isn't expanding. Instead of parking them out here in the open at all seasons, they're gonna be able to put them under cover, better care of the vehicles.
Anybody have any other questions?
I asked Ashley to go out and take a look at it with me the other day. Brought her out to the site to take a look at it, but I did add the pictures into the application.
So you have proposed snow storage in between the two buildings?
Yeah, they have the snow storage here now. That's where the snow gets stored, just out.
I would think that would also,
We have a drain there to drain it back this way.
oh, it does, okay. I was gonna say, I would think it would undermine that foundation even more.
No, I don't think it will. This is actually, you can't see it, but this is actually paved right back in this area here anyways. It's kind of broken up pavement this time. We hope to make improvements on that.
Are Marshall seedless ash not susceptible to the emerald ash borer, or?
Is what?
I see proposed street trees and Marshall seedless ash. I just didn't know if throwing it out there, the emerald ash borer, I don't know if you want to think about a different variety maybe, or?
If someone's got a better variety, we're okay with that. We're not avarice and
I just threw it out there because last time I knew they were like deliberately cutting down ash trees, that's all, just because they didn't want to attract them, so I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has a suggestion.
we used to go to Luke at the Public Works Department and get choices of trees, because he had some kind of a thing he was doing, for the city of Public Works, but he's no longer there.
Right.
The building that's in this picture, is that the one that's gonna be taken down?
That was in the back page.
Behind the
Yes,
Stafford
that's
truck.
That's the building that's coming down.
It's white? That's the white building?
Yeah, the white building behind the tanker.
Right, behind the tanker, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't get used, it hasn't been used for a long time, that's coming out of there.
So in relationship to that white building, the new building would be where the gravel is now, or are they actually cutting into that lawn
That
space?
new building is gonna overlap where this building is, right in this area here, right on this side.
So you would cut into this lawn space a little bit?
The what?
The lawn that's there?
Yeah, well, that's a parking area up there that just hasn't been made, that's a gravel parking area, there's a drive that goes up to it, that's all coming out, that's where the building's going.
I think I saw, Deb, that the percentage change in lawn was minuscule. I think I saw somewhere the percentage change in lawn was minuscule. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not.
As I say, that's really not long. They park on that, and that's a gravel parking area.
Lisa, do you want to make a suggestion to them for trees other than ash? I mean, you don't need to do it tonight, but
If I picked it, it would have been a maple, but
I only thought of that. I don't really have off the top of my head.
no, I'm not, I'm
Sure,
saying.
well, I would just potentially, maybe reach out to the county forester, Rebecca DeJormo, or whatever her name is. you know, see if she's got a suggestion. And I don't, she may say, fine, but I just thought of that, that's all.
A lot of times, we just put a note for a deciduous tree, and depending on what's in the area and what's local and what's
Sure.
available at the nurseries is what they put in.
Yes.
I don't
yeah.
normally even select I just say a deciduous or conifer.
Sure.
That gives them an ability to go to a nursery and get what's in stock and what would be used in this area.
Right.
Well, it might survive.
Okay, anything else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve.
A second.
Any discussion?
I had one more question. So after it's completed, will the whole lot be paved? Like there won't be any gravel anymore, it'll all be paved?
No, this is gonna be paved. It's broken up pavement and stuff, as I say, it hasn't been very well maintained, but this needs to be paved. There's a heavy trucks coming in and out of there. It's muddy in the spring, causes more erosion, more issues. We're well under the lot coverage requirements for the area. As I say, this is about,
It's a
this
big
is
lot.
about 1.8 acres back in here, all
Right.
wooded area.
Right.
And, I would squeeze the building back in here, but then now you're
Yeah.
gonna be into the woodland area, and you're also in the residential, and I can't put a garage in the residential zone, so
Right.
I've tried to pick the best location to do the least, and do the best protection.
Okay,
I'm good, thank you.
so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the Laconia Municipal Airport.
Hi, Wes.
I've got an extra.
We just did 360 Court Street.
So now we're on the airport.
Take one test on.
No,
You gonna share
I'll
that?
share with you.
Hey, Dan, you can share with me.
Okay. Okay.
All right, there's another way you're doing. My name is John Phillips here. I'm with Jacobs Engineering Group. This is a project for the Laconia Municipal Airport. I'm just gonna give a quick rundown of the scope of the project and the need for tree clearing. Basically, I think this is the same set that was sent out before the meeting. This is a general overview of the clearing areas. Basically, the airport needs to clear the approaches to use the runway 8 and runway 26Fs to the FAA standard for safety requirements. There's a handful of properties that are in Laconia, and then the rest of them are all in Guilford. I guess I'll let Jen kind of talk about the wetlands areas that we have.
Yeah, so, yeah, the plans I handed out show the wetland delineation. I just wanted to note that those are older plans and the clearing areas
All
aren't
yours.
accurate anymore, so that's just more for showing where the wetlands are. The plans that John sent out here are the current ones. But anyway, the proposed work involves cutting and removing trees in the wetland areas, in the non-wetland areas. Stumps will either be ground, and there's a couple small areas that will be grubbed, which means the stumps and the roots will be pulled out and the area graded and seeded. We haven't submitted a DES wetlands application yet. We're working on it now and hoping to submit it in the next week or so. We did have a pre-application meeting with them a couple weeks ago. And the total amount of clearing in wetlands between Laconia and Guilford is about 4.2 acres. So I can point out in the plans where the clearing areas are and the wetlands themselves. So this is the Laconia portion of the project, in Sergeant Place and Hillcrest Drive. There's two wetlands in the wooded area, about 0.36 acres of clearing overall. These areas over here in purple. The green is clearing in upland and stump grinding. The red shows clearing and dubbing areas in a couple of residential lots. So that's the Laconia part. All the other clearing is in Guilford. This is the area between Walmart and Lily Pond. Walmart clearing. This is a large wetland, Guilford Prime wetland. Black Brook flows through the southern part of it. So in this whole wetland, there's about 1.12 acres of clearing total. The areas along Black Brook, the ones that are near the road that are easier to access, that we're proposing the trees there will be removed from the wetland. There's a couple of spots more in the interior of the wetland that are going to be harder for the skidder to reach without doing extra clearing or crossing the trees on. So in those areas, we're proposing that the trees will be cut and left in place. And I think it's about 10 to 12 trees.
Yeah.
It's not a huge amount of clearing. The larger clearing areas, all the material will be removed from the wetland. And when we met with DES on this, one of the things they suggested was to do some planting along the parts of the first that were get cleared to try to replace some of the cover that would be removed so to mitigate any impact there. So we do have some shrub planting proposed for areas that don't have any cover for the tree planting. And I think as much as possible, we'll try to leave the understory in place. But there's some areas where there's like a lot of hemlock and not a lot of understory vegetation. So there is So moving on, this is the airport, Lily Pond Road. The airport terminal's over here. There's a wetland right next to that. It's also a Guilford Prime wetland, and that is about 0.6 acres of clearing there. Now we're looking at the southern side of the airport. This is Lily Pond Road here, and Lily Pond is a really small amount of clearing in a wetland adjacent to Lily Pond. That's about 570 square feet. Over here is Meadowbrook, two small areas along the brook, about 1,500 square feet clearing on the bank. This is a large wetland to the north of the runway, kind of a ponded area of marsh. Most of the clearing along the edge of it in the forest area. This is about 1.92 acres of clearing total. And we're waiting for determination from FAA. This clearing area may change while other areas may be cleared, so that's still up in the air. But the last piece shows the eastern end of the runway. Small wetland here, there's no clearing in the wetland, but there's some small clearing area adjacent to the wetland there. And we did do a vernal pool survey during wetland delineation and didn't find anything within the clearing limits. And Natural Heritage said there's a record nearby, but no impacts to any listed species are expected, so. That's my overview. And we're kind of just, at this point, we're looking for any common input to help us with the application and plans.
So as of right now, we're planning on this work taking place late this winter. We had initially planned to have it out to bid at this point and have the grant application into FAA by the end of this month. But pending FAA determination on the on-airport clearing and pending the receiving the permit back from DES, we're trying to hold off as long as possible, but still have the work take place this winter. The idea of the winter is so that any of the wetlands areas, the ground would be frozen so that we wouldn't disturb any of the wetlands. DES has also requested that we let them know 10 days in advance before the work starts so that they can come out and do a preliminary site walk so that they can ensure that the ground is frozen. And they've also asked GM2 to do a pre and post construction survey of the wetland areas just to make sure there was no unintended disturbances or any areas that need to be restored to pre-construction standard. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think we have planned on any permanent impacts aside from the handful of trees that Jen mentioned that we're intending to leave in the wetlands. The idea there being that we would probably do more, there would be more disturbance by going in there with equipment, pulling the trees out, or even just cutting a single tree and attaching it to the winch and dragging it out causes a lot more disturbance than just leaving it in place. There's been some discussion whether or not that constitutes wetland fill. I think the Army Corps doesn't think it does as of right now, but Guilford Conservation Commission does, so I guess we'll just call it permanent impact as of right now and then wait until we get the permit back. But in general, that's pretty much the overview. All of the property owners that are directly impacted, as in this clearing happening on their property, they've all been notified and given a chance to select which type of clearing they wanted, either the clearing grubbing, which is just those two residential areas on Hillcrest Drive, clearing and stump grinding, or clearing only. And there's also a large portion of the area that's state property on the Route 3 bypass, and the state has had their input as well, and they do also have the plans. I think they're going to give us some feedback on traffic control and things like and the method of clearing also. That's generally it. Like Jen said, we're just hoping to get some feedback, preliminary, obviously nothing, official back from the commission today, so that we could put it into the plans. A little less time sensitive now. Originally we had wanted to come to these meetings to put things in the plans now so that everything was covered when it went out to bid, but since we're going to be waiting a few weeks, it might be a little less sensitive, so, but any feedback is appreciated.
Yeah. So, for transparency, I did contact Jason?
John.
Yep. All right. Somebody prior to this meeting, just to double check that I was not in a butter of the property that I own in Guilford. I am not in a butter, so that should not be a problem. I am not completely confident in your statement that there are no impacts. You're taking an awful lot of biomass out of wetlands. And whether you think taking those trees away, just because you haven't disturbed the soil potentially, is not an impact, I say it is. That's my personal opinion. Did the landowners have an option to say no, or is the FFA just saying, sorry?
The airport has
suck it up?
easements. Yeah, they own easements on those properties.
So when you say you might put some shrubbery in there, I thought the understanding was that any trees or shrubs that the radar detects, they consider that's the deck. So how tall are these shrubberies what are you talking about for vegetation that you're gonna be planting?
Yeah, so it's pretty small. So the way the runway approach works is it goes up, from the end of the runway, the approach surface.
Yeah.
So that far from the runway, we're looking at clearing smaller trees. So smaller shrub vegetation. The planting plan calls out hybrid areas like alders.
So 6 feet.
Yeah, I mean,
probably.
stuff with even taller than that, or 15 feet out there is fine.
I think because of the distance away on those, the ones that are along Blackbrook, that we're talking about planting a tree in this area, for example, it would probably have to be 30 or 40 feet high to be cleared. And this,
When you point to that, could you just, for everybody, just say what's in Horse Road there? Where are we looking at?
so this is along Blackbrook, right after it forks. There's some,
You're in the floodplain is what you're saying. There's no residences near there. is
no,
there?
there's no, but this is
That's
all
great.
DOT owned land, for the Route 3 bypass. And this is Route 11 here, so that's the bypass. So this, if you look at the hatching here, it's a little deceiving, it can be a little deceiving, because when we flew the area with the LiDAR, with the drone, we picked up all the points, and there's a little cluster of points here, but a section like this is probably 3 or 4 trees that are coming down. So the hatching encompasses an area, but the trees that will be getting cut aren't necessarily these whole entire areas. So a circle this size, I'm trying to see from there, but that's probably 2 trees, whereas these small ones are single trees.
To jump back, what's the impetus for the FFA to want to improve all this? Are they looking to get larger planes into the airport? What's the?
So the FAA has protected surfaces coming into the airport. It's basically just a safety concern, so they have a certain slope coming off the runway end. It needs to be cleared of all obstructions.
They already have that. I'm just wondering why they feel they need to take more.
So the surface is being penetrated right now by these trees.
Okay, so it's not an expansion, they're thinking. Part of where I'm going with that too is I know this is in Guilford, but the Gunstock River clearing, I don't know if anybody is at the Guilford Conservation Commission has spoken to you about that, and I won't talk about it here because it's not Laconia, but I have a history with Gunstock River, and maybe I'll get to you. That's another time.
I'm not familiar with it. I didn't mention it when we
Yeah.
had a couple days ago.
Well, my biggest concern is that you're really taking a lot of functionality out of the floodplain. And I'm worried, there's a Black Brook stream assessment. Have you seen that? And you've worked with it?
Jen?
I've reviewed it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a geomorphic.
So you've got a lot of businesses downstream of Black Brook because it drains that way to Paugus Bay. And I don't know what you're going to do once you've taken away all that biomass and all that functionality of the floodplains and added more slopes that have no ability to suck up any of that rainwater snow melt. And those people start getting blasted downstream because they already have problems.
I mean, I guess the overall thought is that the removal of the large individual trees within the wetlands and, with the leaf, the root system intact.
Well, it's a dead
the
tree.
ground in place.
It's a dead tree. It's not sucking up water. It's not providing floodplain functionality.
And the shrub, the vegetation grows back to the place after. So that was the thought process there for leaving, much of the understory vegetation in place as possible. In the winter to avoid disturbance to the soil.
Has there potentially been a discussion to do expanded planting? You'll be putting shorter plantings in at the 15 feet level, if I think that's what you had said, more towards where Walmart entrance is, or one of the, so has there been a discussion about doing plantings all throughout the area where you're taking down these large trees to create more understory and more root system and uptake and control in the floodplain?
Yeah, so I think this plan doesn't show it, but right now we have plantings proposed along this stretch here, because there's clearing on both sides.
Right, yes, but I'm talking about your entire plan. You've got a lot of stuff, you got a lot of crosshatches all over a huge wetland system, and I'm just wondering if maybe a responsibility might be to, great, we're taking large trees, but let's put in some smaller stuff if that's what we have to do
So
with.
you're referring to other networks.
Everywhere you cut, putting in something shorter. you know, that they have a determined maturation height that isn't gonna interfere with your system to provide coverage and functionality into that floodplain. Because I really am very, very concerned about this plan. Thank you.
Okay, one of the things that I think would be helpful is to have the municipal line on here so I could see, because I'm not familiar with which side is.
Is it this right here, Dean?
Yeah, so Town of Guilford and City of Laconia line
this
kind
line
of
here?
comes through.
Yes, that thin black line,
Shape.
It's what?
that thin black line.
The thin black line, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess, you know, to what Lisa was talking about, you're talking about doing plantings. You can't do plantings in the winter. You're gonna cut in the winter, so if we get, you know, a lot of snow or a lot of precipitation, then the areas that have been cut are not gonna be able to,
That's not
help the floodplain work, or, you know, so we're gonna get more runoff. So is there a possibility of doing plantings in the fall before you cut? Or will they be in your way?
Yeah, I think, I mean, they were, if we did that, they would get run over by the building over there, so, yeah, it would have to been after that. I guess to address what you said about the, you know, erosion issues before they're done, the construction documents and everything will require the contractor to do like any temporary stabilization measures, you know, that mulch or erosion control blankets, or, you know, that could be done in winter time. That will be in the requirements for the code. I think we have some notes in there.
Yeah, well, if it's, I mean, if it's a question of adding more, matting or something like that, then
And that usually ends up in the CES permit, you know, we're discussing something like that in there.
Okay, so we don't have that part.
So that's right.
We don't have the part about the plantings and the erosion control yet.
No, so that'll be in the,
Okay. So you already went to Guilford?
Yes.
To their Conservation Commission, okay. Okay.
and they had, we'll be going back to them again, once the application's submitted, and they had discussed having a joint meeting.
Do me a favor, just to lift the mic into Jamie, see how it's bent down? It's just kind of hard with the mask. So, there we go, thank you.
We did that, we had a joint meeting when Walmart was doing its expansion, and I thought that worked pretty well because everybody was, so for you, to be fair to you, you got, you know, one side of the story. You didn't get like information from us and then information from them, and it maybe not in concert, but I think it makes sense to have a joint meeting. And we can work with them to make that happen.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to correct what I said earlier. The town line is not that black line. If you go from approximately where that small black line intersects the clearing that's the Eversource right-of-way,
Okay?
and you go and then draw a straight line from there halfway through Walmart,
Right.
that's the approximate location of the city-town line.
Okay.
Half of Walmart's in Guilford, half's in Laconia.
Okay. Right. That made it really easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the total amount of wetlands to be disturbed is 4.2 acres. That's a total for Laconia and Guilford?
That's Correct, yeah, and that includes clearing and access to get to the clearing areas.
So how many of the acres are in Laconia?
Just that one.
3 something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
0.36. It's just, and it's this area between Hillcrest and Sergeant's Lake.
When you looked at the wetlands, did you evaluate their functionality? You did?
Yes.
Okay, so are we gonna get your wetlands report, a copy of your wetlands report when you
Yes.
get things sorted out as to exactly what the final version is?
Yeah, the application will include the wetland report, and I completed the functional assessment worksheet with the new PDF one, so that will all be in the application.
Okay.
I think it's a lot of sensitive areas where you have a lot of streams going through in different places. So I think you're gonna have to take into account what you're gonna plant and how you're gonna protect those streams as much as you can. And the possibilities down the road of how those stream flows will be affected.
And how the
So whether
people,
that's with, I don't know how you know, if there's a mitigation or liability or something, I think you need to keep that in mind. And you probably, I don't know, did you follow Black Brook down any further? You might want to take a look at it as it,
Like downstream of Walmart?
Yeah.
I did not, no.
yeah, you might want to take the time to walk down it, and because it's compromised already in a lot of places.
And you'll
just the
notice-
history of it.
Right.
There's a history of it, you'll notice the culvert reports, you'll notice the blowouts that happened, that blowout that happened when Lowe's went in and sanitation and what had to be done to fix that.
Yeah, it's just something I think that would be good for you guys to know, or to be able to see.
I think the other thing that would be helpful is if you looked at the Black Brook geomorphological investigation, see if there are any areas, either in the area where you're working or downstream of the area or upstream, either one, where there might be some project that you could take on that could either slow the water coming in or the water coming out of the area that's being impacted of Black Brook, because, it's just like Lisa said, there's, it's a meandering stream. And we've been wrestling with this thing for years, and I don't know that we made any progress, but.
Not every business owner had approached, because every business owner was allowed to treat it just as what's in my property.
Right.
It wasn't a comprehensive treatment of the stream. I know, but you may also want to look at Walmart drainage reports. I know they've got their retention ponds or ponds there, but I can tell you right now, an engineer looked my mother right in the face and said, "Don't worry, little lady, we got it handled," and those things blew right out. So,
I did notice when I was out there, it looked like they had replaced the culvert with the driveway.
Recently, yeah, which was interesting.
so I'm just wondering how many of my notes you took down or just his.
So the other thing is, any fees that you have to pay into the ARM fund, and we talked about this before the meeting, instead of it going to the ARM fund, we could talk with the DES and ask them if in lieu of putting it into the general ARM fund, they instead let the funds be available to work on Black Brook instead of going into, the general fund for people to make applications with different projects. Because the area that's being impacted is Black Brook, that watershed, sub-watershed, so I would be willing to work with you to talk to DES to see if they would allow the funds, instead of going to the general fund, stay in Laconia, Guilford, so that we can use them here on projects.
Yeah, no, and that's good to know. I know we had talked earlier, I'll say everybody, we're still coordinating with DES and the Army Corps regarding what they're requiring for mitigation. A lot of times with tree clearing projects, require mitigation at a reduced percentage. And you can pay into the ARM fund or do a local project. So we're still coordinating on that, with exactly what's required, but we'll definitely keep that in mind, and that's good to know, and I'm sure DES would accept that, so.
I would just say in map 3 section, which I know is Guilford, if there would be any extra planning you could do on that north side next to the Meadowbrook parking lot. Because I would hate any more erosion to come down from there, because their parking lots are huge, and
This is on the east side of
It's on the east
On
side,
the-
yeah.
yeah, over
Yeah.
here.
yeah.
So there is a Gunstock Brook assessment that was done, but it stops at Route 11, so it does not include that area. So I'm just letting you know, there is a Guilford Brook assessment, but, so there is information about what's coming down the stream up to the point of Route 11, and they didn't go beyond, but that's highly erodible.
Okay. And the clearing on this side is pretty limited, so,
I think it was actually map it ahead.
This is where the Meadowbrook parking lot is up over here.
Right,
Is that the area you're?
yeah. It's pretty close. Just so you know that. They have terrible erosion up there as it is, so.
Yeah, and I
You wouldn't
think
want your.
The clearing is kind of, I walked up
Spotty.
in this whole area, yeah, the clearing is more, none of it's on Meadowbrook's property, it's all on
Right.
the airport property.
Right. But I would just hate to see the runway flooded or sand come down from those parking lots, because it does. Yeah.
I think the other thing that would be helpful is if, when you're doing your work, you saw areas where we could take action with, with these ARM funds, if we get these ARM funds, to improve a situation, that would be appreciated. Because we have the Black Brook study, and we have Gunstock study, but if you are out in the field and you see something that you think we need to pay attention to, that would be really helpful, because, the geomorphological investigation was done years ago, and, we know that things
Things
change.
have changed.
So any suggestions you can make would be greatly appreciated.
Right.
Any other comments, suggestions, ideas? Okay, so do you have a feel for when you're going to have a finalized plan?
So I do have a couple things to add to this. We talked about the plantings, then finalizing some of the areas. There's not going to be a whole lot to add to these. So these aren't going to be much different than what we see with the permit application. And I'm not sure when you plan on submitting that.
I'm hoping in the next week.
Yeah, so I think
No.
Jen was waiting to have this meeting with the commission before we submitted to DES. But the plans will be minor revisions from that.
Okay,
That we
so
won't-
in a month?
For when you'll see the application, yeah, by the time DES gets it, and yeah, probably a month or so.
Okay.
And then I'll hold off as long as we can to finalize, to do go to 100% before we go out to bid. So we can hopefully account for all of the DS comments, Guilford's comments, your comments, everybody's, yep.
Okay, so if you could give us, if you could tell us, say, a month before you're gonna wanna come and talk, and give us the next, the final version, so that we can coordinate with Guilford, because their meetings are different days than ours, but we, we can find some middle of the road day,
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
just so it gives us some time to coordinate.
Yeah, I know I had talked with Carol Hall about, doing like an early September meeting, but, it all depends on when we get the application in and, DES turns it around and everything, so, yeah, so it could be late September, who knows?
Okay,
But hopefully, yeah, sometime in September.
okay. And your plan is to do the work this winter coming up?
Late winter, yeah, probably February timeframe.
Okay. All right. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the info.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Wooddale Drive.
Good evening, everybody. Richard Holmesy and Brian Iskey for 46 Woodvale. First and foremost, we'd like to pass on our personal condolences for the loss of your friend and worker, associate, Dick Christopher. Very
Thank
nice
you.
man, and may he rest eternal rest. Where would you like to start, Chairman? Chairman, where would you like to start?
I'm sorry?
Where would you like to start tonight? Oh, actually,
There's been a revision to the plan.
so I don't think you have it.
Okay,
We sent a revision of the plan to Dean and Ashley earlier today. The application has been revised to exclude the proposed driveway. And we're going to use only the existing driveway for the proposed building. So there'll be no impact to wetlands, there'll be no application for impact for wetlands, and there'll be no application for the proposed driveway that was on an earlier plan. But the plan that's here tonight is updated with the removal of the driveway, and hopefully tomorrow, Dean and Ashley and I will coordinate and get you copies via email. Am I correct on that, Dean?
Yes.
Ashley, right? So the proposal is, we hired Jessica Bailey from Brian Bailey and Associates, the wetland scientist, to determine what the wetlands are, and it's a vernal pool. But at this point, it's a rather moot point because we're not looking to impact it. So whatever questions you have, we'd like to get your support tonight to move ahead with the project for planning next month on September 1 to erect the 48 by 90
It's
building.
not on there, because this is brand new, right?
That's what I was trying to
Correct,
see. I was
correct.
trying to see if
You don't
had
have
time
this
to-
on here.
It's the two lots brought together, so we have the proper green space there, and there's no impact to lot B or the second lot.
The driveway, the removal of the driveway has not been given to you yet.
Should be on the attachment, so under the agenda, the first attachment that says Woodville plans.
Okay.
It should be page 2, but without that second driveway. That's the
Correct.
only change that's
Correct, that's the
happened?
only change.
So without that second driveway on the second sheet,
But that's what I was double checking. What you're saying, Ashley, is that we have to imagine what it is they're saying. We don't have a plan that is exactly what he's saying.
Ashley does, and they're gonna give it to you tomorrow, but this is the
Well,
plan.
I'm here tonight.
Well, the plan's right here.
You do have the plan.
That's what I'm trying to open this up. Okay, thank you.
All you gotta do is ignore the second driveway. Everything else on the plan is accurate.
Okay, I heard him. Thank you.
Do you want to explain it?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Basically, you've got the building, the original lot, of course, we bought the first lot and then bought the second lot to merge them together to have the proper ratios. And, the driveway was already existing into this lot. The lot was pretty much level as it was. As you know, we put in a retaining wall and brought the lot level. We've done some, other work on preventing erosion, putting in the rock wall on this side, and that's about it. This lot actually will just
Well, it's-
remain natural as it is.
That section, to correct, it's
Well,
one
yeah,
lot
they're
now.
merged now.
It's one lot now. Ashley and Rob have visited the site to show that all the work that we did is in compliance, and it's all up to date with the last CUP permit that we pulled a couple of years ago.
Okay, so let me see if I understand. You're here tonight presenting a building 48 by 90. That's what you're asking for approval to do.
Correct.
Other than that, there's nothing else on
Nope,
your application?
nothing else. The allowed size for the building is actually 5,000 square feet. That's what's allowed with the green and black space, but we're going 4320. We're going approximately 700 square feet less than what's allowed in the space.
What was the original size of the building? It wasn't this size.
The original size of the building was 50 by 100, and it would work, but we decided to make it smaller, in fact, for many reasons. But with the site, the paperwork from Brian Bailey and Associates, the 65-35 ratio, green-black space, we're allowed 5,000, we're at 40, we're asking for 4320.
So those are both provisions that have been done.
How old is that retaining wall?
The one on the left and the one on the right were both done in the last 12 months or so.
Okay. They'll be strong enough to withstand all the
Oh, yeah,
building?
it's a manufactured wall.
It's a precast wall.
Okay.
It's 4 feet underground, it's backfilled with crushed stone, it's got,
It has a
Crusher
structural
one on
element
top.
also that ties back into the compacted earth behind it to hold it so it doesn't fall over. It's got filter fabric on all the drain, all the joints and everything, so we don't lose any soil. And of course, we put sock, the sock has been left in place the whole time. And you can see we've done extensive cleanup. Those who walked out to the wetlands, we've done extensive cleanup of the wetlands. Some of just the litter and debris we got rid of and made it much nicer. And,
we went in there manually, walked through there last fall and took out 2 trailer loads of bottles, cans, junk tires,
tires, crap, all
stuff that's on the left side on the other side of the retaining wall. So it was just something we called the city, asked if we could do to clean up the debris. And there was dead material on the ground, dead forest mat and trees. We took it all, we picked it up manually with 6 guys. We carried it out, we cut it on our property, and we loaded it and got rid of it all. I mean, the place looks really good back there. So that was an effort on our part it took us about 3 days with 6 guys. But back to the retaining wall for a moment. The retaining wall, the way it's built and the way it's backfilled, it's on our land. So the nice side is facing outward towards the wetlands on the left side, and it can't fall that way.
And
It's impossible.
It's got back drains as well.
Yeah, and it's all, complete drainage system is back drained in as part of the previous drainage plan too. So that's all been done.
And then once the building is up, there's not going to be any sign of trailers or everything will go in,
Part of
right?
our agreement was to put all the trailers inside the building, no signage, no use in commerce. Personal use for Brian and I, for our personal assets to be indoors. One, to protect the assets, as Stephen Smith had said, for Stafford, we want to protect the assets, and at the same time, it's easier to use them when they're not covered in snow and leaves and pine cones and all the stuff, and then the neighbors don't have to look at them at the same time. So the answer is,
Beautify the property.
everything will be indoors. Everything will be indoors, but our own personal vehicle when we come and go, that's it.
And so the door for access is straight in from the proposed driveway, access driveway?
Straight in,
Yes.
right, the front of the building. I gave you there's a set of plans for the building from the manufacturer Morton Buildings. Those have been turned in. The structural plans have all been turned in to the planning board. And it's a Morton building, it's a metal building, but it's all wooden structure. And it's a direct door in the front, one overhead door, and one on the side, and a pedestrian door, 2 pedestrian doors.
Oh, it's metal?
Yeah, it's a metal building.
You don't have a picture of it, do you?
No, I turned in with the plans, I don't have it with me, but I turned in a set of plans from Morton specifically.
There's one in the area already.
I was gonna say, isn't there a building on your lot already?
No, this lot's never been developed. No, what's on my lot is a couple of storage trailers that we have.
Temporary,
Yeah.
which will be gone.
But there's a similar building on Wentworth Cove Road, which is the next sister street.
The white one?
No, that's actually bigger, that's 50 by 100, that's 5,000 square, and that's mostly wood. If you take that right turn and you come down Wentworth Cove Road on the right-hand side, Larry what's Larry's last name?
Got a long driveway
There's
back.
a very long driveway to the right, he's got a Morton building out there, it's 38 by 72. And it's the same manufacturer, Morton Buildings. So our building, if this proposal goes through, will probably be brown in color to blend in with the woods. And the plans were submitted, the structural plans, the concrete plans, all the above. We already have buried electrical on the site, and we already have, there's a water line out the street which we're not gonna use, and we're gonna put buried propane for heat, just to keep our assets warm, and that's it. So heat and electricity, that's it.
Is this driveway the same one that is there now?
Yes, yep. Same width.
And you're gonna have gravel?
We've got crushed gravel there now. The whole site is crushed
Are you
gravel.
extending it at all?
Nope,
Have you cut down any trees in the front of the property?
nope.
No, in fact, we planted trees.
We're, as
On the
far as,
roadside?
as far as from the first CUP, as part of the presentation agreement with you, with the board and with planning, we were to plant some trees in the front. We planted about 15 trees. We're in the process of acquiring more in the next few weeks that hopefully will be planted in the fall, to add more to the location, just as a courtesy and how we want it to look.
Some more screening.
And then what was I just gonna say? It's gone. Okay, it's gone,
It'll come back.
yeah.
So your building is like 4220?
4320, I believe. 48 by 90.
Yep, 43, you're right.
4320, I think.
My math problem. Okay. Your plan is to keep all of your stormwater on site?
Yes, it's already, the drainage system's already in place, so what we'll do with the building, we designed the building without gutters, and we'll put 2.5 feet, or 3 feet probably of crushed stone, probably 30 inches deep on both sides of the 90 length of the building. And the roof will just drain off and end up in the stone, it'll just submerge, and it'll drain on the site as a natural a natural stone drainage system. And the thought that just came back to me was, to do this project, we have to take down 3 trees in the front entryway area, I think, to build the building, but I think 2 of them are dead already. So I think we have to take down 1 more.
It's minimal impact.
the amount of trees that we've put back already and the amount of stormwater drainage that we've already put in and the drainage that we're gonna put in, we see that nothing but pluses for drainage on this site.
Okay, I'm sure that you're aware that a couple of your neighbors have complained already about stormwater
Yes,
and flooding of their basements and,
okay. So 64 Woodville Drive, which is adjacent to our right, looking at the property, it's to our right, it's owned by Peter and Cheryl Sampson. That property's been flooding out for decades, okay? And the Sampsons, I believe, bought it about 5 years ago. Dean and I have had, and Rob have had, and actually Ashley have had considerable conversations about this. There's forest mat material on our site only in one place. It's on the far right corner of the property adjacent to the Sampsons. Forest mat material, if no one knows what it is, I'm sure you all do, but let me just say, it's debris that falls from trees and branches and compost and whatever they, okay. What they have is, they literally have about 20 feet of branches piled up, lined up, piles and piles and piles of them, lined up, collecting leaves and so forth. Now, what the owner of, I'm gonna say the owner of Woodville did this, whether it was before Mr. Sampson or during or still, what I've witnessed is still, but I'm not gonna accuse him at this point, what I'm saying is that he's blowing the leaves from his property onto ours. We didn't mind. We've only owned the property for 2 years. This has been going on for a long time. Because of that, the forest mat material is now almost 2 feet high. Rob Mora was bouncing on it the other day, and it was, because it's above the grade of the ground. It's material that's been placed there. So that's causing retention from the stormwater in the street where there's no stormwater drain system, and it's preventing it from going into the vernal pool.
Can you
Yes.
just sort of point out on the map what you're talking, this is,
Right here.
so there's a mound of debris.
All along here,
Okay.
and to complicate things, he put a silt sock in there as well,
Just 2 weeks ago.
but,
So there's some pictures floating around.
Silt sock there.
Mr. Sampson,
Mr. Sampson put a silt sock on his property.
right here.
They're gonna be removing a dead tree. It's flagged and clearly dead, and they put a core compost log there, but there's even still the mound of decaying lawn material is still higher than that anyways.
And obviously, this is all natural. Sorry. We've never touched it. I'll hold it like this. We've never touched it. It's all natural. All this material that has been brought in here has been brought in by the abutters. You know, and before, when we first bought the property, the trail that went in, you could see that people across the street would bring their cuttings from grass, bring it in and dump it on the other side. Yeah. So, I mean, that's been going on for a very long, long time. People were in the habit of that, and we've done absolutely nothing to the street, changed nothing that would change any of the drainage, and that's been witnessed by Rob and Ashley and, you know, Dean as well, so.
The flooding of the property to the north, that issue, you can see that there likely was a swale at one point leading to the wetland and vernal pool, and like we've been saying, there's been a buildup of all this debris over time, and so you guys have been in discussion of potentially not as part of this project, but restoring that drainage back to its original state to give the neighbors some relief from the problem that they kind of self-inflicted,
They
restore
created.
to its natural.
Sorry, the property to the north you're saying is Sampson. I mean, I'm looking Remington. Remington's not
No.
involved?
No.
Okay.
Remington's property's not a.
If I could just, if I could
Next
just,
property up, if I may, Mr. Chairman, next property up on Woodvale.
Yes, I understand.
We haven't seen it. Mr. Holmesy has seen some evidence, but it is clear when you inspect the property that there has been dumping of leaves and yard clippings, et cetera, for years by for lack of a better term, the neighbors.
Correct.
And
The entire
there, right, if you could point to that corner, Brian, where the silt sock is. Yeah, right there is where the silt sock is.
That's the feed.
On the adjacent property, there's a natural swale. It's not very deep. It's a shallow swale, but it's a natural swale for the drainage. And it should continue onto this property,
To the
but
vernal
it
pool.
can't because it's been filled in over the years by all this debris. The low spot on the road for drainage is about 10 feet to the southeast of that, yeah, a little bit further there, Brian. No, the other way.
Oh, this was-
Yeah, right there.
Southeast, yeah.
Right, it's right about there. So what we would propose, and Mr. Holmesy is willing to do this, is to restore that swale by removing the material that's there, just enough to do a gravity feed of the swale so that it goes where it's supposed to go, and that's to the pond. It's clear that that was the original drainage system that was installed by the developer 60 whatever years ago now.
Right, pretty clear.
And so it needs to be restored. So in conjunction with that, our plan is to inform the neighbors, they have been complaining, and that is their right. But we need to inform them that, A, they never owned that property, they never should have been dumping there, and going forward in the future, obviously, they can't be dumping there. And, to some degree, they're being their own worst enemy because they're blocking the natural drainage. I can't speak to whether they have flooded basements or not, and I'm not sure that it's material to this discussion because when this development was done, there was absolutely no regulations about stormwater, wetlands, anything. Developers went in, drew 100 by 100-foot lots to maximize the number of lots. If there was something in the way that was wet, they filled it in and built on top of it. And so who knows, could have been another pond there for all we know. And we don't know. But to say now that anything that's going on Mr. Holmesy's property is causing flooding in this gentleman's basement is certainly not provable, and it's probably not the cause at all. So I don't know how you want to handle restoring that swale in terms of whether you just want to have a note on the plan or make it part of the CUP, or how you want to handle that. The rest of the stuff that we can do administratively and we'll do at the planning board level, but we certainly want you to be aware that that work needs to occur. The swale will be 90% on Mr. Holmesy's property, so the city is not going to do it because we can't expend money on private property. So it's going to be up to, the private property owners to take care, and he's willing to do that.
Can it be overseen, though, by the city?
Oh, absolutely,
So
yes,
that
yes.
It's done correctly
Yes, absolutely.
and not too much?
Yeah.
So in this letter from Mr. Sampson, it says, after surveying the road, we found that the design low point on the road is 20 feet south of my property. And he makes a statement that if your driveway is installed, the one you're not gonna install now.
Correct.
It will exacerbate the problem. So I think, I think that, given that you've changed your plan, I think the thing that would be really helpful to repairing the relationship with your neighbors is to clarify exactly what you're going to do after you get the approval from the planning board,
Well,
so that they see that, we're not putting that driveway in. The problem with the drainage is because there's debris that somebody has put there that blocks the water from flowing naturally.
I got it.
And so I guess what I'm saying is there a way that you can repair the relationship with your neighbors, not that it's our purview to suggest that.
Oh,
But, you know, and it sounds to me like your plan, the change in your plan will do that. But they need to be made aware of the change.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Hanson, I think that needs to come from the city at this point, because we haven't done any construction. So I'd like the support, but at the same, I'm willing to do the I'm willing to go in and clean the forest mat material. I'm telling you all here tonight that Brian and I are willing to do that at our expense. But I've spoken to Dean considerable length about this, and this gentleman owning this property is causing this problem himself.
Right.
Plus, he's pumping
so
water to our
he's got
property.
drains coming off his roof going to our property. We never complained because
And his basement.
we didn't mind. So all I'm saying is that, setting the relationship aside for a minute, he sent in a picture after he put the silt sock in, or whatever actually called the sock there for the, allegedly for the tree. Then he sent in a photo to the city hall of this huge flood in his entire front yard. That wasn't there until he put the sock in. Now, he says he had it surveyed. There's no survey on this property, on the street. So he's making things up, he's fabricating his own problems, as Dean has explained to you tonight. I'm not willing to call the man at this point.
Oh, no.
I'm willing to work with the city and tell the city that we will go in and clean the forest mat up to help the city's street drainage. What I suggested to Dean was, this man has a backhoe he owns in the backyard. He can dig a dry well, he can put a catch basin in, and we will allow, if the cities will allow it, to put 2 pipes running into the vernal pool.
Right.
That will help the whole street. But,
Okay, so.
you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so I asked you earlier if you're gonna contain your stormwater on your property.
Absolutely.
Because that's what the city regulations say, is you have to keep your stormwater on your property. You do that, then you won't have any impact on his property.
But the stormwater that we're gonna talk about is over here where the building is, because we're not touching this.
Right, right.
So this is draining into the vernal pool, so there's nothing
Right.
for me to manage over there now.
No.
But we're willing to take out the material that's been put there. That's going to help it, but it's not gonna help a lot to the city.
It'll help some, but-
It'll help some, but it's high, it's this high.
It's much higher than his property,
It's all-
anyway, naturally.
And you can look at it and you see it's not from our trees. There's no grass on the property, but there's piles of grass there. So where did it come from? It didn't come from across the street because they have their own areas with their own compost, so there's only one house. No, 64 is the only one that the product can come from. It's obvious, that's all I'm saying. I'm the first one to help, I'm the first one to do to solve the problem and go forward, but
Can I say something about our original plan? One of the things we thought about doing, what we would do with the driveway, I know it's dead.
we shouldn't even discuss it, yeah.
but-
That's right, don't you?
It's moot at this point.
Yeah, we
It
were
really
planning
is.
big drainage to try to help it get there.
It really is moot at this point, because we're not applying for that.
Right.
Okay, all right, so
Mark, I take
your,
this off.
your plan, the plan that you're putting before us,
I'm sorry?
the plan you're putting before us
Yes,
is to build a building that is 48 by 90.
correct.
Yep.
You're gonna use the existing driveway.
Yep.
The building will be constructed such that the stormwater from the roof, from the impervious surfaces, will stay on your property.
Correct.
Are you going to pave
No,
your
Nothing.
driveway?
nothing.
No.
All crusher run.
Okay,
No,
Right,
no pavers, no asphalt, no concrete.
so is that consistent with what they've submitted most recently?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So is there anything else we need to know about their project other than one building, unpaved road, stormwater staying on their property? Do we need to know anything else in terms of,
I wanted you to be aware of the work that would need to be done to restore that storm drainage, and whether you want to do a formal vote on that, or, that's up to you, but I just wanted you to be aware of
okay,
that.
and you're talking about in the
Yeah, the far corner,
southeast
right,
corner,
right,
not
right.
exactly, it's the northeast.
Right.
We're willing to put that on as a stipulation. We
Right, no,
want
no,
to
yeah.
help.
Yeah, we understand that, we
Yeah,
understand. Okay, so,
So, to your other point, though, about informing the neighbor, or whatever terminology you want to use, I mean, we will take care of that. We
Okay.
will let them know that the plan has changed, this is what's going to happen, But we will also make it clear to them that the days of it being a leaf dump are over.
Okay, okay.
And was there a problem with one of the retaining walls that was, extra fill was put in where it shouldn't have been?
No, that was a misunderstanding because where the wall is on site, there, he's actually allowed to impact further than, basically, if there's no as-built or way in the field to tell, there was a rock wall and there was fill on the other side. His impact area where he had done some additional work is within the CUP approval for his retaining walls.
It's in this area right here, ma'am.
And I'm,
Yeah, I know,
as
I know
part
what
of
it is.
It's not
this
in this.
plan, you guys are gonna be,
I saw a
probably
picture.
finishing that.
Correct.
That
Correct, Brian,
last
we
piece.
upgraded the plan, which planning also has that plan to show the area in question. We can go about another 20 feet with fill material, which we'll probably do just to make it beautified, as part of the original CUP.
There's an old wetland flag that was actually a flag for a ditch, not for a wetland.
Yeah.
They had used wetland ribbon, so in the
They
field,
must
when
have
you see
ran out of
that,
the
and then
regular
you see
ribbon.
impact.
It was an old wetland.
And that was done for the previous owner that we bought it from, but Brian Bailey had done it still. So it was just a
But
mistake.
anytime I hear the word fill, it scares me to death.
Gotcha. No, we're just filling in what the CUP has allowed us, and we probably won't even go to the
There was
maximum.
a man-made ditch there that we just.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but
no, we got another 20 feet to go, but we probably won't go to the maximum.
I hope not. That would be my concern.
Okay, any other comments, ideas, suggestions?
So you're gonna have the drainage right next to the building with the crushed gravel. Now, do you have anything between that and your retaining wall?
Crusher run,
Well,
Sorry?
no, well, there's.
crusher run, a lot of crusher run.
Right, so there
material.
is no vegetation there, though?
No, nothing, no. The vegetation's all out on the street,
Yeah,
and then the natural vegetation is behind the retaining wall, and then behind the property, and then the wetlands to the right is all vegetation that's being untouched.
But there is drainage along the retaining wall.
It's built in.
The precast went all the way along.
right.
There's drainage, there's a French drain that was built with a
All right,
pipe,
yeah.
connector pipe.
I
all-
remember seeing that,
Yeah.
you know, when we were out there years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
And the roof is designed, it comes as a standard 2-foot overhang. We're probably gonna do a 4-foot overhang so that we can have more crushed stone to have more drainage, because the square footage of the roof is the same. So if we add more drainage, we can have more stone on each side of the building. It's an upgrade they allow you to do when they build these buildings.
As long as it doesn't get too close to the wetland.
Right.
Oh, no, we got plenty of room. No, it's on our main lot. It's not even close to the wetlands area.
Wait, I'm sorry, you said you're gonna put a 4-foot overhang? And then
Most
you
likely-
said earlier that you're gonna have 3 feet of stone coming off the building?
Well, right, because you want it, it's not gonna run out like a gush, it's gonna come down like this. So the building's designed with 2 feet, so we'll do a 3-foot of crushed stone. If we're gonna go with the 4-foot overhang, which hasn't been decided yet, then we'll increase the size of the stone, the crushed stone. We've got plenty of distance to do whatever. There's plenty of room there. So when the water comes off the shed roof, it's gonna drop straight down. It's not gonna rush out, so it'll drop straight down. So if you do a 2-foot overhang with 3 feet of stone versus a 4-foot, you're gonna do 5 feet of stone.
When the building is
Just
final,
you know.
final design, we'll have the calculations for the French drain to absorb the water.
Okay, so you're gonna have those drawings, those building drawings, when you go to the planning board for approval?
Yes, we already turned in the main set of drawings from the manufacturer. It's it's manufactured, so it's pretty simple. They send them to you.
Right, then you just make it site-specific.
Yeah, so the only thing we'll do is we'll add what we're gonna have, the 2-foot or the 4-foot overhang, and then the stone,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else have any questions? Comments?
Would we be able to do a site visit?
Sure. Sure. Rob's done one, Ashley, Dean, and Dean, who went with you?
Stacy would.
Stacy. So anytime, just let us know, or we can meet you if you want us, or you want to do it by yourself, whatever, we can do whatever.
Actually, thank you for letting me go there because it did change my mind.
Okay.
No,
Yes.
it's wide open.
I'm sorry, just gotta,
No, we're glad, we're happy to let you all see it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you took away that driveway, though. Because you do have a beautiful wetland off to the right.
Yeah, and it will stay there, naturally.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I would just comment to add any plantings that you can. The
Yeah.
the more the merrier, on either side of where your wetlands abut.
Well, just to give you a quick, what we haven't thought, we've approached the gentleman that's buying Barton's Motel, and there's a certain amount of trees they have to leave on the property as part of their plan. So I've talked to him a couple of times, whatever they're gonna rip out, we're probably gonna acquire them.
Oh,
and
nice.
Transplant them at Woodville, because they're beautiful.
Full
Like,
size, big
they've got
trees.
the huge
Just not,
shrubs.
not in the wetlands, though, just.
No, on our property, on our property.
Just want to make sure.
That would actually look really good on
They've got
the other side of the doors.
They got real tall arborvitaes, but then they got the short, fat bushes.
Yeah.
That
Japanese
you
Yeah.
can chop them down to rectangle, you can
They were gonna just
do whatever you want.
dump them, and we're gonna take them.
So we're gonna acquire, and we're gonna move them with excavators and try to make it nice over there, so.
Nice.
And that'll be done hopefully if we can take them, if we can do it.
This fall.
He doesn't know, we'll do it this fall. Be out front, so it'll be way before construction. Construction, if it gets approved, won't be for another year or so, who knows?
And that
Make sure you know
vegetation,
where you're digging, you're not going to hit any pipes or anything.
Right, we already, dig safe, we'll call them, yeah. What's that, Mr. Jansen?
that vegetation will help to take care of your stormwater.
Stormwater,
too.
it'll help, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, okay, so I'll make a motion. My motion is that that the plan is to put a 48 by 90-foot building at the end of the existing driveway. The building will have one door that will be at the end of the driveway. It will be, the stormwater will be contained on-site. To do some additional plantings.
And we'll take care of the
Swell.
swale as a courtesy. You put it in there if you want.
But that's,
No, I'm just saying, just,
I think that's a
I
a
think-
separate issue.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say, I feel like we should keep that separate,
Yeah,
because that sounds
absolutely.
very
you
complicated.
have our word on it, how's
Yeah,
that?
okay, that's just a courtesy thing that you're doing, so.
Wood?
So what else?
I would put the swale in.
You're going to be clearing it in the winter?
The swale?
The lot, the parking lot or anything, or is,
You're
or
gonna
will the,
plow.
are you going to plow?
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Are you going to plow in the winter?
We plow the entryway just in case we have to get in, but we don't plow the whole thing, and sometimes snowmobiles go through, so we leave the snow. So,
Yeah.
but it's all crushed gravel, even when you plow it, we
Right,
just,
I just don't, I wouldn't want it, to be plowed and be sitting right next to the wetlands in case there's anything.
yeah, no, it's got a retaining wall, so it can't,
History.
Okay. I mean, I didn't think you were going to use it too much in the winter, so.
no.
No, we pretty much put stuff in for the winter. and
Just
get it back out in the
one
spring.
trailer we use for snowmobile, and that's it, so.
Okay, so should we include the swale or not include the swale? It's not really part of the project.
No, it isn't.
No, it is not, but it is part of the remedy for the neighborhood.
Okay,
So I would,
then, we'll put it in. Okay, so you'll clean up the swale that's in the northeast corner of your property, right?
Right, we'll clean up the forest mat material and allow the swale to be cleared to the vernal pool.
Right,
Perfect.
one time,
Yeah,
one time. So this is not gonna be an annual cleanup event for you.
No, hopefully
It
not.
should never be, because it shouldn't build up any material.
That's
That's- yeah.
it's irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
I second. You made the motion, I'll
That's the
second.
motion, okay. Any comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
terrific, thank you very much for your support.
Okay,
We look forward to getting you, No, they're gonna, I'll get them to them.
Thank you for changing your plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem.
thank you for
your
working
time.
with us, we appreciate
Again,
it.
our condolences on
Yep,
Mr.
yep.
Christopher.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're back to the minutes. Everybody get a chance to review the minutes from July 8th, 2020? Okay, any comments?
I have some corrections.
Okay,
So on number 7.5, I think it is, 7.5. You talk about the Lake Coast grant. So our grant was actually 1,200, not 12,000. And it was received from New Hampshire Lakes, not DES. And the weeds that we found are really just on the boat trailers, not like the boats. It wasn't, not that they weren't rinsed off, the boats were rinsed off, it was on trailers. Sorry to be picky.
Well, but it's an education.
Right.
anybody have anything else?
Maybe approve minutes presented.
Okay,
Second?
okay. Any more discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, so what else do we have? Okay, Ashley has listed the other permit applications that have been submitted that I've reviewed and signed off on, made comments on. So if you want to see any of those applications, you can just click on them and you can see what. Okay, under old business. State school property, you can read the articles. They wanted to make it, they want to make it
An authority,
an authority, and the governor denied it.
you vetoed it.
Vetoed it, thank you, I knew it was some kind of big word.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Trifetta if there's been any meetings or if you've gotten any correspondence from that group.
They actually just scheduled a meeting today for next week. They have, since the governor's veto, they have not had a meeting. The veto will go back to the legislature. It has to be I think it's 2/3 majority in both houses to override. I don't know what the chances of that are. The bill contains things other than just the state school property. It contains a number of other things. So I'm not sure if he's vetoing the bill because of state school or the other things. I would hope that he would give some direction as to what he found to be objectionable, that the legislature can act accordingly. But I believe if I remember correctly, the date, I don't remember the exact date, but the date for the legislature to get back together to deal with vetoes, I believe, is in September sometime. So it's not a quick turnaround here. But they are continuing with, whether they stay a commission or not, they are continuing with some activities that they have started. They are going to be doing a wetland delineation survey starting in September. they are going to be doing a Phase 1A study of some of the buildings. I don't believe it's all of them, but some of the buildings, to find out what's inside them in terms of how much asbestos, how much lead paint, how much mold, or whatever it might be inside the individual buildings, to try to get an idea of which buildings are perhaps salvageable by a developer if they wanted to incorporate them into their other stuff that they might build around it. And I know that they have talked with the historical division about the status of the buildings and those kinds of things. No final determinations on any of that stuff. They have had the soil study done. They have a very limited number of areas where there is a little bit of petroleum and some pesticide contamination. It is very small areas, thankfully. And where they need to, they are going to either dig it out or at least identify it. And future developer, if they go into that particular area, may have to do something, but otherwise. I know on the pesticide stuff, it was a pesticide that was used legally in prior decades, and so therefore it does not have to be removed unless you're going to disturb the soil, and then you've got to remove it. But if you're not disturbing the soil, you can leave it right there, and because it was used legally. That's the explanation they gave at one of the meetings. So.
Yeah, saved my eye roll for
I know.
after he left. He didn't want to get us into trouble.
But you wouldn't want to build a playground on it.
No, right, if you're gonna do something like that, then, or whatever, yeah, you'd have to.
Or have a backyard garden
Yeah.
without knowing.
DDT and DDE.
I didn't, no, it's not DDT, I forget the exact, it's 2 or 3 different compounds, but they were, you know, I mean, it was a farm, it was a county farm and prison farm, and so they used whatever the commercially available stuff was at the time to grow crops and whatever, and that's what's there.
It usually stays pretty localized in the soil.
It is very low, it's very limited areas, it is very localized.
12 inches, you've
Right.
probably got it all. So,
Right, right.
okay. That's it? Good, thank you. Anybody have any questions on that? I think the meeting, is the next meeting going to be a Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So, does anybody want to go to that Zoom meeting? Because, you know, we could get the Zoom address and you could go.
Yeah, we can forward you the information, I mean, it's a public meeting,
It's
so.
public, I was going to say, it's probably going to be printed somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's on their website
Right.
for the agenda, but I mean, we can forward you the
Right.
Zoom information if you want to.
That would be good. I would do that, if
Okay.
you would like to forward it to me.
Okay,
Can do.
thank you. Okay, so the next item is the checklist. And the comment I have on the checklist is that we don't have anything there about porta sands or porta potties. Can we put something in that says keep them a certain distance from water bodies?
Yeah, it's 30 feet.
33,
So,
33 feet.
is the
But is it on here?
No.
It's not on here. This is an old checklist that I had not even, I didn't know it existed until Lisa mentioned it, and then I came across it. There's typos, there's a whole slew of, I think, corrections that should be made. So my thoughts were if everyone could provide different inputs, things that they do like, don't like, and then I can tweak it, send it back out, and if everyone likes it at that point.
so
Okay.
my question, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I?
No, go ahead.
So these are the things that they need to address for a wetlands conditional use permit, but it's nothing beyond that. And I think so I think some of the things that we were under the impression was getting conveyed to people who came in looking to put in an application was that they were gonna be getting a little bit more informational type, printed material or links now, however you wanna do it, to, the Conservation Commission strongly supports the use of, and I know you've got something in there about rain gardens, but, when we talk permeable pavers and other things that so that people who came in with a plan that maybe didn't have use of porous pavement, but it might be an option, weren't blindsided by us mentioning it. So I didn't know if that's something that, and maybe you would want.
Ultimately, that is the purpose of this. A lot of these are just strong suggestions, and ultimately the ordinance says, like, the end goal is to protect our natural resources and do X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't specifically necessarily point out to, you must have a rain garden, because requiring that in every application would be, astronomical. It doesn't apply to every application. So I think that the real functionality that we want this to have is like right on par with what you're saying, Lisa, that we should be including things like, you should take into consideration your snow storage, and maybe we attach a document for, if you live on the lake, here's a good guide of where you should or should not put your snow, or rain garden plantings. I know UNH has a good resource for that, so I think that's a good idea, and maybe we change the wording a little bit to not make it specific to conditional use permits. Maybe it's more overarching of feedback and guidance for if you have a wetland on your property.
I think the other thing we ought to ask for is topographical drawing for the site. You can learn a lot from, if we had it for, for what the FAA is doing, we would better understand how water is flowing there, because we don't know. And that,
Yeah, we do. Okay. But,
Yeah, if you guys want to just call out like suggestions, and I
It would be,
can
yeah.
look into resources, and like I said, refine it. We'll probably look a
be
little
more
bit different,
specific
and
in
then-
suggestions.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we should have is a guideline of doing wetland surveys. Doing a wetland survey in September, in my opinion, is the wrong time.
Yeah.
It's dry,
Right.
typically.
It's gonna be dry this year.
We could get, 4 feet of rain in September, then but in the past, Tightflex, we sent back into the field because they did their wetland survey in the fall. We said, we want to know what it's like in the spring. And so they had to, to be consistent, we need to be consistent with everybody.
I'm just gonna raise the question, and maybe I shouldn't, but could that open us up for questionable, like, in other words, you're making me wait 7 whole months to move forward on my project because you wanna, I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing that out there, I don't know if there's
I don't know.
You certainly could run into that potential, but, the point is well taken.
Does the planning board ever consider that?
It's my understanding, okay, and maybe a little bit of my naivety, but it's my understanding that a truly trained soil scientist ought to be able to determine the wetland, whether it's wet or not, or at least be, fairly close to what the limits of the wetland are. But the point is well taken.
Right.
And I think
You're right.
in
Those
certain.
are 3 criteria they use, and with 2 of those, they ought to be able to figure it out.
So I'm just, along your lines, Dean, I'm wondering if we put information in there that's saying, surveys done in the springtime are more highly favored than those done at other times of years or
Or more
considered-
accurate, or more.
whatever wording, but I'm just saying, let them know that we're legitimizing spring, spring
I mean-
surveys rather than.
Certainly, if we suspect that something is a vernal pool, then checking it out in September doesn't do anybody any good. But
You might not even see the vernal pool.
right, but a regular wetland, standard wetland, maybe, you know, they could be fairly accurate.
And I'm uncomfortable with what Mr. Homsey did, coming in without us having a plan, you know, him just talking about what he's going to do. I think in a case like that, I mean, this project has been hanging around for 6, 8 months. I think, I would prefer that in a case like that, if it happens again, you can't come to this meeting because you don't have the plan. I mean, even if he just sat down and he said, he hand wrote, you know, here are the 5 things I'm going to do, that would have been helpful to us. But, you know, it's, anyway.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, and that's why I was a little bit persnickety with him when I said, well, yeah, but I'm here tonight, you know, you're gonna give me the plan tomorrow, but I'm here tonight. 'Cause
Okay.
I think that's not fair to other
And
people.
I do understand that concern, but with all due respect, his plan was exactly the same, other than the removal of the driveway. I think if he was changing a whole bunch of things and he said, oh, I have all of these other changes and you can't see them, but just promise me, I swear they're on there, I can understand the concern, but trust us, I had not seen any attachment come into my inbox personally before this meeting, so.
My comment wasn't to cast light on you guys at all, because I understand, you know, you're doing your best by the applicant too. I mean, you're weighing both, but I'm just saying, as a board member, respect me enough to have the stuff that you're talking to me in front of me, not, you know, so that's.
And did Mr. Homsey go to the planning board last night?
His plan was accepted and referred to September's meeting. But it
So
was
his-
the original plan.
His plan, and was his plan consistent with the plan that he talked about tonight, here?
Yes and no. The no part was the plans that were before the planning board last night were with the second driveway, which, same plans that you had on your screens tonight. Okay. But verbally, I told the planning board that we have been working with him and he was going to eliminate the second driveway. And so therefore, that's when they voted to accept the application, knowing that an updated plan would be provided to them before the next meeting.
So it more or less was the same plan.
It was the same plan, except for, you know, you just delete any reference to the second driveway.
Okay, so
In
basically
terms
the
of-
same thing we
So,
saw.
yeah, in terms of the building and how the site is configured now and the end result, yes, it's the same plan. Yes.
But, and Stacy was here to hear his presentation, so when he comes to the board and, you know, if his presentation in September is not consistent with what we've dealt with. you'll
Well,
know
I
that.
mentioned something last night about the second driveway. I wanted to make sure that that was not to be included. And that's also why I just like everything written into CUPs. If it's written there, then you have something to stand on.
Right.
Right. I agree. That's why I'm uncomfortable with, oh yeah, we're gonna take this out, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that.
The only thing I was
Our plan
disappointed
approved.
in was the Morton building. But I'm gonna go and look at the one down the road.
Okay.
But
Are you concerned about integrity?
I think I was just hoping, I feel bad for the neighbor across the street.
because it's unsightly, is it?
So I don't know if it's
Well, you
gonna
said
be
Morton
ugly.
Buildings, so I'm just saying that's what you know about Morton Buildings, and they're not something that.
I just heard metal
Yeah.
and
Oh, okay,
brown,
okay.
and I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I was hoping that we could see some nice,
Right.
but,
I was asking for my own education, that's why.
yeah, I have a feeling it's gonna look like a metal building. But if he can get those plantings from Barton's Motel, that would really shield it. And the neighbor is only gonna have a space, it's really beautiful out there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you've got all of his toys. So,
Is there a way that the city, that we can adopt an ordinance that actually says the porta potties have to be 33 feet away from the water?
I'm actually in the midst of looking at our ordinances, our wetland and our SPOD right now, so that is something I have included in.
Okay, thank you.
So stay tuned.
So does that fall under the rules and procedures? What you're doing? Looking at the 33 feet for porta potties?
The rules and procedures, that's for you guys, that's for
This
the
is-
commission
That's for
as
us.
a board.
We
This
operate.
is a separate,
I'm talking about,
that's me looking at the
Oh,
ordinances,
all right, okay.
that's a separate
right.
Okay,
thing for you guys.
okay. All right.
That's your homework.
So, yeah, so let's all take a look at this, and if we have any suggestions or specific suggestions, even down to plantings that we suggest, that would be good.
So you're talking about, take a look at this, right?
Mhm.
And when do you, are we on a timeline for this?
Just whenever you can, before the next meeting,
So before the next meeting, you
before the
want?
next meeting,
Okay.
if you guys could give me some sort of feedback, and I'll be tweaking it.
When is the date?
Well, we don't have any applications at the moment, but it would be August.
19th.
Well, that's our work session, so are we considering, I guess it's meeting.
There's no
rules.
difference between the work session and the meeting.
Yeah, I just remembered that, I'm sorry. Okay.
Otherwise, it would be September 2nd.
So let's leave it for the 19th, and if we need it.
So if you could give me feedback by, say, the 14th, so I'll do my own feedback at first and then incorporate anyone else's who has comments and have it ready for you on the 19th.
And if we don't have a meeting for the 19th, then you want it by, like, July, I mean,
Just
August.
as long as I have it like the Friday before, whenever we meet.
Okay. Okay. So if anybody wants to do tributary sampling, we're gonna do it tomorrow. And what time are we meeting, Ashley?
Yeah.
Noon. High noon, at the end of Massachusetts Avenue, down at the water.
I have the sample bottles.
Good.
Just so you're all aware, DES is only doing chloride samples this year.
You just
They're not
say
doing E.
tomorrow.
coli and some of the others that they typically, at least not for
Right.
the widespread testing. I'm sure they're doing it internally for their own and beaches and whatnot, but for BRAP, they're only gonna be doing chloride in-house, just due to COVID restrictions and probably only being able to have so many people in the lab and whatnot. But it's free,
Right,
so that's good news.
and we'll have the meter readings.
Yep, so we'll have all the meter readings.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yeah, anything else? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, well, since Ashley mentioned like the beach reading, I go through, I read through a couple of the Facebook pages that are for like Laconia, so people posting, and there were a lot of people who were confused about, like, is Bartlett Beach open? I don't know, so I called Parks and Rec, and they hadn't posted it, and so there was just a lot of confusion about all that, and then they did come out and post something. But, you know, people are paying attention. They're like, they're interested in the water quality, they want to know. They've also been complaining a lot about the trash. I know, but I'm just saying, I don't know if it's an opportunity for us in any way, or maybe somebody else has already jumped on it. You
In
know,
terms of cleaning up the trash?
not necessarily physically being out there, but, or I'm just trying, like, having an informational presence, or, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there that, you know, through Facebook or whatever, you know, I know the city might have some restrictions on what you can do with social media, but there's just a lot of traffic out there about people asking questions, and, you know, sometimes I direct them to, like, Winnisquam Watershed Network, if it's a Winnisquam thing or whatever, but it just, they're interested, and they're complaining about all the trash people are leaving, and they're always blaming somebody else, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of interest in what's going on.
So I will tell you that the boat ramp at O-Pee-Chee, the trash is cleaned up every weekend because Deb does it.
Yeah.
And the trash is cleaned up at the Fish and Game ramp because the other lake hosts clean it up.
Right. I'm talking about waterfronts in general in the city, not, you know, I mean, but just, yeah.
So the other thing is, frankly, if you see trash, pick it up.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
I'm not talking about you. I'm saying anybody sees trash and it bothers you enough, then pick it up.
well,
But I think Lisa means it's an opportunity maybe on our website or a connection to the city to have information on algae blooms and everything else that's going on.
and I don't know if we work with Parks and Rec, because they've seen some, I think Lisa, in their office says, oh, I thought Matt
Amy.
No, it wasn't Amy, I was speaking
Oh.
to Lisa, said, well, I thought Matt posted something, and Matt hadn't, that I had seen, Matt Manzer, who works in the office now, department now. And but it came out later, but I'm just saying, so he might be the conduit for information. If we want to give them information, maybe we are more plugged into the kinds of things we might want to let people know about. I don't know.
I will tell you, I've had numerous conversations with Amy Levisic,
Yeah.
and they are overwhelmed.
I know.
They're overwhelmed because people are coming up, they're not going on vacation, so they come up and they use the lakes, and they're overwhelmed.
It's
The
a
state
mess.
is now taking some action over at Hearn, that's great. Because, you know, Ashley called and I think
City manager.
Wes called.
Yeah,
Wes-
city manager called.
Anderson called. So,
Well,
I mean, I went down there one weekend, down to Ahern, and it was, I've been to Jones Beach in New York, and it was not that crowded. It was more crowded than Jones Beach.
So maybe if I have some time this weekend, with your permission, under the name of the Laconia Conservation Commission, I could send Matt and CC Amy on, like, here are some PDFs, you know, and the links to things like, you know, different DES fact sheets or cooperative extension fact sheets, or just stuff to get information out to people, because they're asking questions is what I meant. So if we don't have our own Facebook page, but he's posting stuff, even though I didn't see it right away, maybe they could be the conduit for information from the Conservation Commission, is my question.
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe we need another kiosk,
Another
Well, that's
kiosk.
next year then,
right,
so.
but down at Bartlett. So I'm working on the one at O-Pee-Chee, so I could use some of your info sheets too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, I got a color printer now, so I'll
Oh, good,
laminate
because
it
I
and
don't
get
have
to
one.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I'll, thank you.
Anything else?
Great.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
To adjourn?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hang on one
Wait.
second.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh,
Mr.
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
If we could discuss the O-Pee-Chee Park goose issue.
Oh, sure.
So, Rob and I went out there, was it yesterday? It seemed long ago, but we were out there and grass has grown on the sand and there are geese. And it's an issue that's happening, it seems like all the time when I talk to poor Amy.
Does the city have a beach buggy cleanup thing that cleans the sand? I know some of the cities have a little thing that you drive right out there and it sweeps up and,
I told her it was definitely concerning, and not only is it a park's responsibility, but it's environmental and conservation. There's overlap, and, you know, if
So
you
you
guys
get
have an
dumped.
interest in it, and it's something that we could help her out with her department being overwhelmed with, you know.
so do they want the
devastating
grass
and-
pulled out of the sand?
So she said the main issue is getting rid of the geese for the long term. If you just clean up, I mean, they're gonna keep coming back,
Right.
so not only would it be nice to clean it up, but also find a way to get them to stop coming back. She's tried coyote statues, dog statues, real dogs, herding them and trying to corral them with fish and game, the stakes with ribbons on them to spook them away, noise alarms, and she said she's still seeing issues. The only thing she hasn't tried is the grapeseed oil extract that you put in a spray bottle and you spray it and they don't like the taste of it.
So they don't eat the grass.
They don't eat the grass and then they don't hang around because it doesn't taste good. And then they kind of learn to associate that area with just tasting gross. But it is costly and it's something that needs to be reapplied. It doesn't last forever, so especially if it rains, you know, you have to kind of stay on top of it. I was looking into it, it's like $150 a gallon. I'm not sure how far a gallon goes, but apparently that extract is one of the main ingredients in Kool-Aid, grape Kool-Aid. So,
We could
I'm
try
not sure.
Kool-Aid.
I'm trying
One
to
for Jim Jones.
if there's like, if there'd be any consequence of like a sugar-free Kool-Aid and then just making like massive amounts of Kool-Aid and spraying it on the field. But I think if we could do a combination of
Not
things,
sugar-free.
like spray.
We don't want to use sugar-free.
Spray the Kool-Aid and put out a coyote statue and see if that does the trick. I don't know, but she appreciates any sort of feedback or help that we're willing to.
Sugar-free it's got too much of the,
Aspartame.
yeah, the stuff, you don't want that in the water. So,
Well, it's not gonna go in the water.
well, it might.
Well, if you get a rain event, it will wash in.
Have they been all over the athletic fields too?
It's everywhere out there. I know Peachy Park, like the Point area too, and if you
Yeah, they've
don't watch your
been
stuff.
over at the boat ramp a lot too.
What is Fish and Game, I mean, they've given her all the suggestions they can give her, is that what she's at her wit's end with that? Has Fish and Game given them all the suggestions they can give her, is that?
I'm sure she's taken them, she said they tried corralling them to potentially euthanize them at one
Oh,
point.
I thought they
and
were protected.
They caught one, I think the Canadian goose aren't, there's so many of them. But they caught one and it was just, they realized it was impossible, that's not a way to go about it, so.
The reason why I bring that up was because I was watching something else and they said that they couldn't harm the geese because they're under some sort of protection, not because of the
Yeah,
population.
they're under the Federal Migratory Bird Act.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, she said it was an effort between her and Fish and Game at one point, but regardless, it's not a long-term.
But I do know places that have euthanized them before. You have to catch them when they're molting, so they can't fly.
Oh.
And then you just corral them into like a, little area. Sounds like they needed a better corral.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Maybe if we had some eagles.
We do, we got
I saw
plenty of
something
eagles.
about if you buy it looks like it's a plastic dead goose. And they get scared because they're like, oh, it's a dead goose. They don't want to hang around. It'd be like if there was a dead body at the beach.
So like
You
that
would
would
want-
That would be attractive.
They didn't try the swan trick, like put a swan out there?
Yeah,
Fake
I
swan?
think
that.
they tried
Did
that.
that last year?
They had
Yeah.
fake swan, did they have fake swans?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, get some real swans.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
That was
Yeah,
pretty
what
cool.
happened to those?
I used to go by that
Did they
every
get
day, and I
stolen?
was like,
The
"That's
swans?
swans in Ohio. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because they do that in Meredith also. Does Meredith do anything different now? I would check
At
with
Heskey
them,
Park.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
because they've always had a lot of trouble, but I know they used the Swan last year.
Well, I've been over there this year. I mean, there's stuff
There's
everywhere.
swans.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
It's like the chipmunk year, you know, we've got a chipmunk boom. Maybe we could have a goose boom, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before, there's even, you're supposed to have long grass and the hayfield that we manage.
Yeah.
They're all nesting in the hayfield and the grass is long, so it's like, I think they're.
So weird.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, thanks.
All right, so I got fake swans, and, I don't know, anyone like the Kool-Aid idea? I don't know.
Yes, as long as it's not sugar-free.
Yeah,
Are people
why not?
willing to help volunteer to
Spray it?
make it, well, to restore the area and make it nicer? I mean, there's so much grass and
Well, do you,
it's bad.
does she, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If she has some sort of like map or something made out, like this is our game plan, because I mean, I know like where the sand is and I know where the grass is, but I don't know where her biggest concern, if it's the beach. We have a garden, we have an adopted spot down there, so we're down there occasionally.
I'd say the main beach is an issue. The whole thing, like right where the water touches, where if you're a kid, you're running for it, you're gonna be covered in
In the cove, you
huge
mean?
crap.
No,
Both
not
of
the
them.
cove, out at the
It's
point.
bad. I have
At the
photos on my
point?
phone. You
I've
guys
just
wanna
seen
check it
the
out
cove.
later? It's bad.
You're saying the cove too?
The cove too, not as bad, but there were probably like 35 geese hanging out there too,
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of time before it's.
So it's just harass them is basically all we can do if we're down
Yeah, I
there.
was gonna say we could pay some kids to just hang out
That's
there
it.
all day. and
That's
scare
That's
them.
it.
The lake hosts need to expand.
Let's get the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone wanting to swim in that with the way it is right now. It's really
That's why I
bad.
haven't seen many people there.
They have taken over.
Wow.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
That's all I had. I mean, Dean and I are also doing conservation easement walks. We're finishing the last ones up next week, but other than that,
Maybe we need to invest in a couple of those long-handled scoopers,
Super duper, super
probably.
scoopers.
so that we don't have to, if we do want to clean it up, that we
You
don't
can
have.
take a rake and just, it's,
Yeah,
it's,
kind of goes between the tines,
Mm.
but
We need to
anyway.
get the inmates back out there.
A leaf rake would probably
It's-
work.
A what?
A leaf rake.
It goes between the tines. I've
That's it.
tried it down at,
Sign of the times.
I've tried it.
All right.
I've used a
I can
shovel.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, ready. I gotta get this
Second.
mask off.
We're done.
It's driving me nuts.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
I seconded.
Oh, whatever.
Any discussion?
Good on you, Deb.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So if two monkeys
No.
share an Amazon account,